Okay. Can everyone hear us okay? Just testing. Hello, people. Someone's raised their hand. Okay, all good. And are we live on Facebook? All right.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Hello, I am Sabrina. I am one of the co-founders of Calm Collective. I hope you've tuned in to the previous sessions. If not, welcome to Calm Collective, where we are promoting good mental health in Asia. Today we have Erin from Mindful Moments. She's the founder, and she's a mindfulness coach. And today we have her here with us to run a mindfulness session, as well as to tell us about how mindfulness can help us with work anxiety, whether we're at home or whether we're on the front lines as an essential worker. So yeah, Erin, shall I leave it to you to introduce the session?
Yes. Thank you, Sabrina. Hi, everyone. So really thank you to Sabrina for inviting me on Calm Collective's webinar. And I'm very happy to be sharing with all of us mindfulness for work anxiety. So I'm just going to begin this session with some slides. I want to let all of us know how mindfulness could potentially benefit us, how it could help us to manage our anxiety. And then I hope for this session to be as interactive as possible. So feel free to let me know your thoughts via the chat later when I get you to do some reflection work or some practices with me. So this will happen for about, 10, 15 minutes. Then I will guide you through a series of practices, mindfulness practices. So you get a feel of, what it takes to practice mindfulness, how to practice it effectively, and then we'll do a Q&A. If you have any questions about mindfulness at all, feel free to post them in the Q&A section, right? So essentially the chat is more for interacting with me and letting me know your thoughts. And then the Q&A will be, for Q&A later, all right? Okay, so I'm gonna start by just sharing screen here. Okay, how mindfulness helps with work anxiety. And I'd like to begin by just giving a brief introduction of myself so you know my background and where I come from. So my name is Erin, and I'm primarily a mindfulness coach. And I was working in corporate before I began teaching mindfulness, and I was doing corporate communications. And back then, I was suffering from a lot of stress, a lot of burnout. I was going through all these burnout cycles and really, really unhappy with my job, with my work, with my life. And that's when one of the PR jobs got me rethinking about what I should do, about my well-being, about my mental, emotional health, and physical health as well. And that's when I found mindfulness. It wasn't like an immediate discovery, but it was through a process, a journey of just exploration, right? So today I'm teaching mindfulness to corporates, to the public, to individuals, and I'm trained to teach two programs here. One is the MBSR, as you can see on the screen here. MBSR, in case you don't know, it stands for Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, and Sabrina is quite well versed in this program as well. So this program is a foundational training program. It's an 8-week long program, requires some commitment from you, but it's really a very good structured way for you to get into learning what mindfulness is and how to integrate that into your life and how to change your relationship with stress and anxiety. Okay, and if you have younger children, maybe youth or teenagers, they can actually learn mindfulness as well, but in a slightly different way. So they can do a program like .B, or they can look for similar programs or relevant programs out there. So regardless of which background you come from, which age group you come from, you can definitely benefit from practicing a little bit of mindfulness. Depends on how deep you want to go. So for today's session, we only have about 1 hour or less. And I really want to give you a good introduction of what it's like to practice it and why we should practice it. All right, so I'll do my best to. It's not impossible to master it in a session like that, but I'd like to give you a good enough introduction to hopefully intrigue you and see if you want to look further into this. All right? Okay. So let's move on. And I always like to start each of my sessions with practice. I think it's really important to start practicing. So this is our first practice here, 1 minute of stillness. And I practice this with my 17-year-old students as well because I lecture at a polytechnic. And before the start of every class, I actually get them to just put aside everything and just be in stillness for 1 minute. And 1 minute is just 60 seconds, okay? So this is exactly what we're going to do, 1 minute of stillness. And what I'm going to do here is I have a bell. So this is nothing spiritual. It's just two things that make a sound, a nice bell sound. All right. So I'm going to use this to signal the start and end of 1 minute. Okay. So all you need to do is to just put aside everything. You don't have to look at the screen when you do this. So you can have your eyes closed, or if you want to, you can lower your gaze down to the floor. And you just have to sit in a comfortable but wakeful posture. All right, I know it's afternoon time. You may be feeling a little bit drowsy. This is not a time for napping, okay? This is meant for us to be wakeful, all right? So sitting up straight and tall preferably, okay? And we're going to start 1 minute. So when you're ready, so having your eyes closed or lowering your gaze down to the floor. All right, that was the end of 1 minute, and you can now have your eyes open and just focusing back on the screen here. All right, so I'm just going to stop screen share for a moment because I'm curious about your experiences. So I encourage you to let me know, all right? Just now, this practice was 1 minute of stillness, right? 1 minute of stillness. I'm curious as to what was going on for you in that 1 minute. So the question is, were you still? Okay, so you can type yes or no in the chat to let me know, all right? Were you still? Okay, so feel free to type it. Thank you, Sanjeev. Yes. Sabrina, yes. Okay. Pequot, not really. And what does O mean? No. No? Yes. Okay. A mixture of thoughts here. Ah, Shu says, I was still but kept having fleeting thoughts. Yep. Yes. So for those of us who say that we are still, so how did you know that you were still? This is a golden question. I'm going to ask a lot of how do you know? It's not to challenge you, but to have us reflect, right? How did you know that you were still? If you say you were still, how did you know you were still? And if you felt that you were not still, then how did you know that you were not still? Okay. Let me get an indication over here. Shu here says that you were having fleeting thoughts. How many of you shared the same experience as Shu? How many of you had thoughts coming in that 60 seconds, in that 1 minute? If you had thoughts, you can just type a T. Sanjeev had plenty of thoughts. Okay, and nothing in mind. Yeah, all right. Interrupted by thoughts, sounds in the background. Yes, sounds can serve as a distraction as well. What about the rest of us? Did we have thoughts? Right? So you may have had different experience, slightly different experiences. You may have had many, many thoughts coming in and totally random. You may have, yeah, Kian Beng says thoughts about the silence. Absolutely. How many of you were like counting down? You were wondering how long 60 seconds is, and you were trying to time and see if I would ring the bell on the dot. Maybe. Okay. Some of you may have had just one thought, and that thought just stuck in the mind. Some of you maybe no thoughts at all. Right? That's all normal. Shu says, I kept trying to bring my focus back to my nostrils of breathing. Okay, interesting. And this is part of what we're going to explore today, right? How to bring our focus back. Okay, so you may have noticed that, in this short 1 minute, you can tell a lot about the state of your mind. So a lot of times, it's not difficult to keep our body still, right, for 1 minute. But was your mind still? Okay, was there a difference between how still your body was and how still your mind was? So you may have noticed your mind was really, really busy, even though your body was very, very still. Okay, so this is our first understanding of mindfulness, right? It's just to notice the state of the mind. How busy was your mind, right? Okay, I'm going to go back to the slides. Okay, all right, and I would like to invite you now to just let me know what you think. Okay, which mode do you think you were in? Without knowing what they mean first, you may already know what they mean, okay? But without knowing what they mean first, or without me explaining, um, think about today, just today. I mean, half of today has gone, so you may want to just assess or reflect a little bit. Today on a Saturday, which mode do you think you have mostly been in? Is it the doing mode or more in the being mode? So if you're more in the doing mode, you think you can just type a D in the chat to let me know. If you're in the being mode, you can type a B to let me know. Okay? Being, doing, being. Okay? All right. Closer to being, doing. All right. Thank you. I'm a caregiver, so mostly D. Yes, I absolutely agree. Yep. Okay, doing, right? So what is the difference here? And today is a Saturday, right? I would assume, I hope you don't have to work today because it's a Saturday, but there may be a difference between which mode, between a weekday and a weekend, right? Which mode you're more in. So maybe if you're in a typical Monday or a weekday, you may find that you're probably more in the doing mode than the being mode. Okay, so I'm just going to just let you know what each of these mean from the mindfulness approach, right? If you're more in the doing mode, you can sort of get a cue from this visual that I've chosen here, right? Always running against time. So are you always multitasking on a typical doing mode, in typical doing mode, right? Doing more than one thing at a time. And in your mind, there's always this checklist. What have I not done? What have I done? And check, right? There's always what's next. What do I have to do next? Even as you're doing something in the present moment, you're thinking, what's next for me? Okay. In the doing mode, our state of mind has a lot of processing. There's so much processing that we get into this mode of living from the neck up. So we ask a lot of things like, what if? What if this happens? What if that happens? Very much in the future, projected to the future. There's a lot of judgments going on as well. Everything we see, we want to make a judgment on that, right? It should be this way. It should be that way. The dishes are not done. You should have done the dishes, etc., right? We are constantly evaluating, speculating about what's happening. There's a lot of comparison, and we're always in the problem-solving mode. And you may realize that when you're in the doing mode, essentially the mind doesn't really stop. It just goes on and on and on. Okay, so it can feel like we're sort of like in a rat race, right? Even as we're working from home nowadays, we're sort of in this on the wheel all the time, just running nonstop, right? Yesterday, I had a session where some people told me that, on a typical day of telecommuting on a weekday, they have back-to-back Zoom meetings, 7 to 8 Zoom meetings in a day, which is really, really appalling, right? Because if we were to, have just go to work as per normal, just going to the office, would we have 7 to 8 meetings back to back? And some of these Zoom meetings last like 3 or 4 hours. Okay, so it's yes. Thank you, AJ. It's very draining to join the Zoom meetings. It requires more focus somehow, right? We think we are at home more, it should be more relaxing, we shouldn't be so busy, but essentially a lot of us are becoming very, very burnt out, right? Okay, let's look at what the being mode entails. And really, it's just a few words, right? Thank you, Kim Beng. No traveling between meetings in the online world. Yeah, so that's a very good point. So, in a sense, we save travel time, but we are sort of making use of this time to do more. So, it's even more packed now, right? Which is quite, to me, it's quite ironic in that sense. Okay, so how much of the time now that you have allow you to be in the being mode? Let's look at the being mode. Okay, few words, not much. Awareness of the here and now. How often are we aware of the here and now? Just now, during that 1 minute where I invited you to be still, in stillness, were you aware of the here and now? If you were, even just for one moment, one single moment, you were aware, you were mindful in that moment, right? In mindfulness, in the being mode, we talk about there's this overall attitude of acceptance of what is here for us. We're allowing for things to happen without having to fight them or resist them, and there's less struggle overall. And just holistically, there's just an attitude of, oh, there's nothing to do, there's nowhere to go, and I'm simply here. I'm just being here in the present moment. Okay. Yes. So if you're in the being mode, AJ, likely yes, you are more in the present moment. You're just being in the here and now. That's what present moment means, right? When I present these two modes like that, I don't mean to say that each mode is better than the other, right? You may have already sensed that if you're in the doing mode most of the time, what does it do to your well being? If you're constantly running against time, always thinking about what's next, what to do next, multitasking all the time, living in your headspace all the time, what does it do for your emotional well being? What does it do for your mental well being, right? But does it make sense for us to be in the being mode all the time? Right? So when I say being mode all the time means like, you don't have to really plan ahead. You don't have to get things done. Whatever that is here, you just be here 24/7, right? Is that practical? It's not practical, right? We can't just run off to a cave and just stay there and just ignore everything. Maybe we would like to, but we can't, right? We still have to keep the world going. The world is still running. So uh, for our reflection here, do we want to strike a better balance between the doing and the being mode? And of course, a lot of times, I also reflected on this yesterday when I was speaking with some HR professionals, where HR is, just introducing mindfulness to the employees in the organizations, and it's not so straightforward, and to just ask employees to just practice on their own when nothing changes in the organizational structure, in the way that the company is run, right? So we cannot practice on our own individually, but on the management level, if nothing is done to change the mode of work, then it becomes very difficult to realize the being mode, or to realize the work-life balance. Okay, so just for some reflection here. So I'd like to hear from you about this, all right? Since we're talking about anxiety is becoming so common nowadays, and I would like for you to let me know, what are you like when you're anxious? What are you like when you're anxious? So you can break it down for me and just type in keywords over here. What kind of thoughts do you have when you're anxious? What kind of thoughts come in, right? Sometimes we can just keep obsessing over the same thought when we're anxious. So you can just type, generically what thoughts you have, and what emotions do you feel when you're anxious. Anxiety itself can be an emotion, but what other emotions come with anxiety? Yeah. Okay. Christy says fear. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You don't have to say what you're fearful of, but generally, yes, there is a feeling of fear. Stomach aches. Yes, Sabrina says stomach aches, racing heart, tightening of throat, back of neck hurts, worrying, paranoia. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Negative thoughts, fear, headaches, sleeping, yes. Coughs, panic attack, mind went blank, can't think on feet, yes. I like to just point in on mind went blank, can't think on feet. This is a typical freeze response. When we're anxious, we're gripped by this fear, our amygdala in the brain is hijacked, and suddenly, yes, everything just goes blank. Yeah? Lack of confidence, faintness, feeling faint, feeling out of control. Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. Thank you for breaking down all these for me, and yes, they are all very relevant. And as everyone shares like that, you may notice that there are common grounds to our anxiety, right? Our anxiety is not individual to us. We do share the same traits. Okay. Kian Beng says memories of the past. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay. So we want to be able to understand not so much why we're like that, because I think we all understand when we are gripped, when we are threatened by stress, by challenges, by things that we feel would threaten our sense of balance, we'll go into like a fight, flight, or freeze mode. Okay. But the question is, how might we manage this? How might we regulate this better? Right? Anxiety has become so prevalent. Everyone is having anxiety nowadays. Probably a few decades ago, it's quite unheard of. Right? Okay. So I'm going to move on. So essentially, our mind is really, really powerful. It can bring us anywhere. So think about where your mind has brought you before when you were anxious. Was it a good place? Was it a bad place? What kind of places did it bring you? Maybe not like a physical, imagined place. It could bring you to like the worst places, right? For example, when someone really annoys you and you're just obsessing about what this person said to you and you're obsessing about how to get back at this person. When you're really feeling really scared about something, you can't stop worrying and you're just stuck in that cycle of worrying thoughts. And the mind just brings you there and you can't get out of it sometimes. Okay? So your mind can literally bring you anywhere, everywhere, right? So I usually present this sort of like a timeline concept to illustrate why we talk about being in the here and now, why we talk about being present when we practice mindfulness, right? There is the past, there is the present, there is the future, okay? And a lot of times you will notice that it's very natural for the mind to just keep, drifting back and forth between the past, future, past, future. So there's nothing wrong with this. There's absolutely nothing wrong. We do need to reflect on the past. We do need to think ahead and plan for the future. But what really goes wrong is when we get stuck in either the past or the future and we can't come back to the present, right? So think about something that had happened to you and you just can't stop thinking about it and you're ruminating, obsessing over that thought. Usually it's a negative thought. And even, it hijacks your mind space, your head space, such that, even as you're lying in bed at night, you're not able to fall asleep because you just can't stop thinking. The same goes for worrying, right? Worrying can start with a very good intention. You care about something and you really want it to go well. It can start with a thought of concern, but if you're not careful, this thought of concern can spiral into worrying, into more thoughts of worrying, and we just go into a downward spiral and we get an anxiety as a result. Okay? So being stuck on either past or the future is not very good for us, right? So what do we have to do? And this is essentially the essence, the basis of mindfulness. We are essentially training ourselves, right? So let me just present this to you first, and this may be familiar to you, right? When we talk about thoughts or emotions, sometimes when we're anxious about stuff, we can just go into this never ending loop. It can start with a thought of concern, right? This concern may turn into a thought of worry. And with this worry, you start feeling the emotions of worrying. I don't know what that feels like for you. Everyone's emotions may be different. It could be fear, it could be, um, you know, uh, low confidence or something, right? So when thoughts invite emotions, these emotions in turn tend to amplify the original thoughts that you have, right? And then we go back to the same cycle again. The thoughts will invite even more emotions. The emotions are going to invite more thoughts. So essentially, we keep going into this never-ending loop. Okay. So how do we break out of this cycle? We have to come back to this timeline here. Okay. So essentially, we have to know how to bring ourselves back to the present moment as and when we need to. This is a practice. This is actually a training of the mind. We're talking about training our attention to be flexible enough. If we're not flexible enough, we just stay stuck. Right? If we're flexible enough, we can, as and when we need to, we know that we're stuck, we can bring ourselves back to the present moment. Okay. Now, I have to clarify, this doesn't mean that we stay in the present moment all the time. We still need the past, we still need the future, but it is a flexibility. So this is a skill, right? So we can shift our attention as and when we want to, depending on how constructive, how helpful this is for us. Okay, so essentially this is what mindfulness is about, at least the most basic skills. attentional flexibility. And you can see, maybe you get a sense now that this is really not a tool, right? Mindfulness is not like, oh, I'm going to take a hammer out and just hammer my troubles away. It doesn't happen this way. We have to practice all the time in order to build this skill, sort of like you're training your muscles in the gym. The more you train, the better, the stronger your muscles get. Right? Okay. All right. So remembering the mind can bring you everywhere, but you can always come back to the present. If the mind brings you to the past, to the future, remember you can always come home to the present moment, to the here and now, and just be. Right? Of course, there are ways to do that. So through the practice later, I'll guide you through that. Okay. Yes, and I just wanted to flash this very quickly to you in terms of the research outcomes of mindfulness. There's just so much research being done on mindfulness now, and these are the more common ones that have picked out the outcomes. So as you can see, from reducing anxiety to depression relapse, it actually helps us to strengthen resilience. So we bounce back from difficulties and negative emotions more readily. We come back to a more balanced state, right? It helps us, of course, to improve our concentration and focus because it's an attentional training. So definitely we will be more effective with whatever that we're doing, our work. It helps us have mastery over our emotions. We can regulate them better. We have better EQ as a result. We make better decisions, right? When we are able to see the big picture with mindfulness, we can make better decisions. We can improve on our relationships as a result. We also can change our physical health. So immunity, mindfulness meditation has been proven to raise our immunity and to give us better sleep. We know that people who are anxious, people who may ruminate a lot, they may not sleep very well. Okay, and last but not least, less self-destructive behaviors. Now, this is when we feel that stress, we feel the anxiety, and our immediate go-to solution is to turn to some form of distraction. Let's say our phone, or let's say food, or let's say alcohol, or certain bad habits. And then, this can spiral out of control as well. This is how addictions happen. Okay, so with mindfulness, we can actually reduce these less destructive behaviors. Okay, and all this comes from our attention. This is a attentional training. Okay, so we are going to go into practice mode now. So enough of the intellectual understanding. Mindfulness, it's not enough to just have an intellectual knowledge. We have to practice it to benefit from it. And preferably we practice it every day. So I'm here with you for one session, one day. I hope that you will find some ways to continue practicing on your own after the session. Okay, so now you can see that I have this picture of a body here. So with mindfulness, we do a lot of body work, and the reason is very simple. Going back to what I shared just now, the mind can bring us everywhere, to the past, to the future, to the best and the worst places. The mind can bring us anywhere, but the body will always tell us that we are here. Okay, if this is difficult to remember, you may have seen this kind of scenes in movies before, dramas, or you may have done this before. You can't believe something is happening and you're like pinching yourself to make sure you're not dreaming. Okay, so why do we pinch ourselves? Why do we slap ourselves on the face? It's because that physical sensation, that pain, tells you that you are here and you're not somewhere else. Okay, so this is the reason why we want to be able to observe our body. Just now, some of us shared as well. When we are stressed, we tend to have headaches, stomach aches, and everything. All these are signs and symptoms of anxiety coming up. So if you're someone who is prone to perhaps panic attacks, can you catch the moments when you're slipping into the anxiety mode and be able to regulate yourself in time? So this body awareness is really, really important as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring us through a movement practice where we're just going to learn to observe the body in movement. So these are very gentle stretching movements and or balancing movements, and essentially everyone can do them. Okay, so I hope you will join me, and you don't need a lot of space. You just need a sort of like a standing space, and just make sure that the obstacles are clear around you. All right, and just a gentle reminder that with any mindfulness practice out there, they are supposed to meant to be very gentle. So invite a lot of gentleness and kindness and to really work well within your limits. We're not striving to get an A or an A plus with this, okay? So just simply learning to be with the body as you engage in these movements. All right? Okay. So I'm going to stop the screen share here so you can see me on the screen. If you want a bigger version, you can sort of, I don't know how it looks like on the screen. You may want to pin my screen over here. All right. Okay. So let's take some time to get into position. So just find a space in wherever you are, whatever room that you're in. Okay. I'm going to adjust this a little so you're able to see at least most of my body, hopefully. Okay. All right. So we just want to make sure that you have space around you. So just swinging around to make sure you don't hit something by mistake, yeah, by accident. Okay. All right. So we want to start every practice, every mindfulness practice with a right posture, a wakeful posture. All right. So from here, we want to stand with our feet about hip distance apart, with our feet flat on the floor, just to ensure that it's stable. Right? It's stable. And we want to stand up straight and tall. So spine is straight, but not too stiff, relaxing the shoulders, allowing the arms to hang down the sides of the body. Right? So for a start, let's have our eyes closed, or if you prefer, you may leave them gazing at the floor in front of you. And let's invite awareness to this body in this stillness. So just noticing what is present in your body at this moment. Becoming aware of the air around the body in contact with the skin. Does the air have a temperature? Noticing the touch of the clothing against your body. And at this moment, you may also be noticing areas of soreness or tension or tightness within the body. So there's no need to change anything about this experience right now. We're just learning to be right here, right now, with however the body is at this moment. All right. So now when you're ready, let's take a deep breath in and exhaling fully and allowing the eyes to open. Okay, so to keep ourselves safe, we're just going to keep our eyes open throughout these practices. Right? Okay, let's come back to our stable standing posture. And for a start, let's drop our attention all the way down to the bottoms of the feet. So becoming aware of the sensations that you may be feeling at this moment right at the bottoms of the feet. Is there pressure? Do you feel texture of the floor? Do you feel temperature on the floor? All right. And you may notice also that the body weight is now evenly distributed between the two feet, the two legs. So now when you're ready, we're going to keep the movement very slow. We're going to shift our body weight to the left, shifting the body weight to the left so that the bulk of the body weight is now resting on the left leg. And you may feel that there's more pressure now on the left foot than on the right. Okay? So just resting here for a few moments, noticing the body this way, inviting a lot of curiosity to the body. And then we're going to shift back to center. And then now we're going to shift to the right, very slowly and gently. And now, feeling the pressure on the right foot. Doing a comparison between the left side of the body with the right side. Is there a difference in sensations? Okay, and then shifting back to center. All right. So now we're going to keep both our feet flat on the floor. And then very gently, we're going to shift the body weight just slightly forward, keeping the heels on the floor, but shifting the weight slightly forward. And just noticing the weight resting now on the front of the feet, the ball of the foot, the toes. Just getting a sense of what the body feels like at this moment. Okay, and then very gently, we're going to shift back to center. And now keeping our feet flat on the floor, very safely, we're going to shift our body weight slightly to the back, shifting the body weight to the back. So the bulk of the body weight is resting on your heels. And as we keep to this posture, as we maintain this posture, noticing which muscles in the body are engaged and which muscles are relaxed. Being really curious about the body. Okay, and very gently, let's come back to center. Back to our stable standing posture. Okay, so once again, we're going to very gently shift the body weight to the left. And this time, finding a balance, let's lift the right leg up in front of you and lift it to a height that feels comfortable for you, right? So there's no need to lift it too high. And so now we are just balancing on the left leg, right? If this feels safer for you, you could just, use your arms for a little bit more leverage on the balance, or you can just rest your tippy toes on the floor, okay, and see what that feels like, okay? So noticing how the body is keeping itself in balance, okay? And very gently, we're gonna lower the right leg back down and shifting back to center. Okay, everything is done very gently and very slowly. Once again, shifting to the right now. Finding your balance, we're going to lift the left leg up in front of us. All right, so now the body is just balancing on the right leg. So at this moment, you may notice also some thoughts coming in, some emotions coming in maybe. And so there's no need to push anything away. There's no need to change anything. If anything arises, just simply notice their presence. Okay, good. And very gently, let's bring the left leg back down and let's come back to center. All right, now when you're ready, I'm going to shift once again to the left. Once again, finding a balance and lifting the right leg up. Okay, so now from here, we're not going to lower the right leg back down, but we're going to very gently swing the right leg over to the right. And noticing how the upper body is now leaning slightly to the left just to keep itself in balance, right? So this can feel a little bit playful, right? So inviting a lot of curiosity, like you're noticing the body for the very first time, okay? And then we're going to swing this right leg over to the back, swinging it over to the back, and notice how the upper body is now leaning slightly forward just to keep itself in balance. Okay, it's okay to have a little bit of fun with this. If you have children at home, you can do this as a family and just getting them to be aware of the body, right? Okay, so now coming back, bringing the leg back down, coming back to our stable standing posture. Okay, now we're going to do the other side. We're going to shift to the right. And very gently, we're going to lift the left leg up in front of us. Okay, keeping the movement very slow. And without lowering the left leg in any way, we're going to gently swing the left leg over to the left and notice how the upper body is leaning slightly to the right just to keep itself in balance. Really becoming aware of this body. And then now we're going to swing this leg over to the back, noticing how the upper body is leaning forward to balance itself. Paying attention to this body right here, right now, in this moment. Okay, and now very gently, let's bring our leg back down and let's come back to center. Okay, so now we're going to bring our attention to the arms now, just noticing the arms hanging down the sides of the body. And we're just going to hop our attention. Remember, this is about attentional flexibility, okay? So we're going to just zoom in on the right arm at this moment. And very gently and slowly, keeping the movement as slow as possible, we're going to lift the right arm up by the side as if you're drawing a large semicircle. Okay? As you're lifting the arm, noticing the weight of the arm, the heaviness of the arm, as you're lifting past the shoulder level and reaching up towards the ceiling. All right. So noticing the body in this extended posture. Okay. And now when you're ready, we're going to stretch the fingers up. So really stretching it up like you're almost touching the ceiling and noticing the stretch down the right side of the body, resting with whatever sensations that are here. Don't forget to breathe. Keep the breath flowing naturally. And only if this feels safe for you, we're going to lift the left heel up, just the left heel, and stretching even more. Okay. So now very gently lowering the heel back down, relaxing the right arm, and just allowing the right arm to very gently come back down, paying attention to what's going on in the arm, what sensations are present, and just rest your attention with these sensations and coming all the way back down. Okay. All right. If you need to, just lightly shaking out the right hand. There are still some sensations here. And let's come back to our stable standing posture. Okay, so now let's hop our attention over to the left arm, right? Very gently, we're going to lift the left arm up, keeping the movement slow, noticing what is arising for you. Are there any judgmental thoughts about what's going on here? Any emotions? Lifting past the shoulder level and reaching up to the ceiling. Okay, so just noticing the body in this extended posture, paying attention not just to the arm, but also to the shoulder, the chest, the shoulder blade at the back. Now we're going to reach the fingers up to the ceiling, almost touching the ceiling, noticing the stretching sensation down the left side of the body. Keeping the breath flowing naturally. And when you're ready, we're going to lift the right heel up if that feels okay for you, stretching even more. Stretching even more. And then very gently, we're going to lower the right heel back down, relaxing the stretch, and very slowly allowing the left arm to come down one moment at a time, just paying attention to what's happening here in the left arm, coming all the way back down to the side of the body. Okay, good. So just shaking out the left hand if needed, and let's come back to our stable standing posture. Okay. So now we're going to expand our awareness to both the arms, all right? So our attention can be narrowed, it can be widened, it can be expanded as well. So just getting a sense of the two arms, right? And now very gently, we're going to lift both arms up by the sides as if you're drawing a large circle, two semicircles, right? Paying attention to the weight of the arms as you lift past the shoulder level and reaching up to the ceiling. And just noticing the body in this extended posture. All right, and when you're ready, we're going to bring both the arms down the middle, very gently lowering both the arms and the hands back down to the torso and back to the sides of the body. Okay, we're going to do this again. We're going to lift both arms up by the sides, paying attention to the sensations in the body. And as you're stretching up, really noticing the upper body stretching up to the ceiling. And then beginning to lower both the arms, the hands down the middle, and noticing how the body weight might be just sinking down the floor. All the way down and back to the sides of the body. One more time. We're going to lift both arms up by the sides, feeling the upper body stretching upwards towards the ceiling, reaching up to the ceiling, and coming down and noticing the body weight is lowering all the way down to the feet and all the way sinking down to the floor and coming back. All right. So this time we're going to add the arms. All right. Very gently. Sorry, we're going to add the heels. Okay. So as you're lifting your right arms, we're going to raise the heels up. So you're really reaching up towards the ceiling, balancing on your tiptoes, noticing what's happening here, noticing what's going on. And as you lower the arms, bringing the heels back down to the floor, noticing the contact of the feet with the floor again. Okay, so now we get a general awareness of the entire body, raising both arms up, lifting the heels up, and reaching high up to the ceiling. And And then as you slowly come back down, lowering the heels back down, noticing the contact of the heels with the floor and back. Okay, so one more time. We're going to lift up by the sides, lifting the heels up, reaching up to the ceiling, and then we're going to pause here, just in this balancing posture. Noticing as you maintain this balancing posture, which muscles in the body are engaged, which muscles are relaxed. Okay? Holding here for a few more moments, noticing what's coming up for you. Now, very gently allowing everything to come back down, slowly, one bit at a time, and noticing the contact of the heels with the floor, arms coming back down the sides of the body. Okay, so now when you're ready, I'd like to invite you to bring the body back in stillness and very gently closing the eyes or lowering your gaze down to the floor. Let's invite awareness once again to this body in this stillness. And for a few moments, noticing what is present in the body this time. What sensations are present? Is there temperature in the body? Perhaps heat or warmth or coolness? Noticing the quality of the breath. Maybe even noticing heartbeat. One moment at a time, just noticing what is present. And then when you're ready, I'd like to invite you to bring your awareness to the breath in the body. Just simply noticing the body standing here and breathing in and breathing out. Allowing the breath to be natural. So there's no need to deepen or lengthen the breath in any way. Letting go of the need to control the breath. And so noticing where you best sense the breath in the body. Do you sense the breath at the nose, the flow of the air in and out through the nostrils? Or do you sense the movements of the breath at the chest, the shoulders, or at the belly? Rising, expanding as you breathe in, and releasing as you breathe out. So for the next few moments, just very gently resting your attention on the sensations of the breath in the body. Paying attention to one breath at a time. And noticing if the mind's attention has wandered away to somewhere else. Maybe it's being pulled away by some sound around you, or maybe some thoughts. You're distracted by your own thoughts. And that's perfectly normal. All you need to do is to bring your attention back to the breath in the body. There's nothing you need to do to the breath. Simply allowing the breath to be just the way it is. As you breathe in, simply know that you're breathing in. As you breathe out, simply know that you're breathing out. All right, so now when you're ready, I'd like to invite you to take a deep breath in and exhaling completely and allowing the eyes to open or widen. Okay, so this is the end of our practice session, and I'd like to invite you to just keep the movement slow and just move yourself back to the screen and please have a seat. All right, we'll move to Q&A session, and I guess I will hand over to Sabrina.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you, Erin, for the good mindfulness session. I think, unfortunately, we've kind of come to the end of the session already. And yeah, I think we all learned a lot from just practicing together. And, I think we have some takeaways from the session for our daily work and everything. So maybe just one question for you, Erin. Say we're facing an argument or disagreement at work, and you're facing some stress coming up. What's one thing that we can immediately do to calm ourselves down?
Okay. The breath is always a very good tool to have. And of course, this comes with practice. So the whole idea is when we're stressed, our mind takes us away, right? So let's say we're triggered by something and the negative thoughts come in, immediately our attention goes to the negative thoughts or the emotion. So we're in the head space a lot. So it helps to bring the attention to break that loop that I talked about and to bring our attention back to the body, which is in the present for us. So this is a very handy way to help us just come back to the present. So coming back to the breath, wherever that you sense the breath best, the nose or the body, and just try to sustain your attention there. The first time you do it, very likely it's not going to be that successful. So the attention may just run off again. If the attention wanders off again, just bring it back. So this is the practice. Every time you notice the mind wandering off, just bring it back to the breath again.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I think, yes, it's time for our next session. So it actually starts in about 5 minutes time at 4 o'clock. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining our session today with Erin. And thank you, Erin, for your time.
Yes. Thank you for practicing.
Yeah, and if anyone is interested in practicing more or learning more about mindfulness, please look Erin up on Facebook, on her website. Is it mindfulmoments.sg?
Mindfulmoments.sg.
Yes.
Or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
Or on LinkedIn as well. That's how I found Erin actually originally. Yes. Okay, and if anyone is a parent, please join us for our next talk. We'll be talking about how to parent better or how to take care of ourselves as parents during the pandemic.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Erin. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.